Hello and welcome to AFS News, your source for anything AFS and beyond. Josh Olin has our first story, A Community Buzz, the new academic schedule. To you, Josh.
Thanks, Mike. One of the goals of our Community Buzz segment is to give a voice to members of the community concerning various on-campus topics. For this, we asked students and faculty to comment on the new schedule. Everyone who was interviewed was asked to describe their feelings in one word.
Confusing.
Awful.
Simplifying.
Good.
Terrible.
Busy.
They were then asked to look at the other side of the argument by giving one word that would offer the opposite perspective, and one idea that could improve the schedule in the upcoming year.
I like community time that way because we have lunch for lunchtime as opposed to clubs and stuff.
Meeting for worship, it's crams everything in and you have no community time.
It fits really well that we only have 2 classes at a time, so you have a good level of classes, and then you have breaks and stuff, and community time really works well.
I think that in the sense of having more class time, it's a positive, but in the sense that we're losing a level, which is another level free, which I would have, then that's negative.
Overwhelmingly, the student response to the schedule was much more negative than that of the faculty. Students often thought the faculty members liked the schedule more because they had more of a say in the creation than the students did. To find out more about this topic, we interviewed the creator of the schedule, Donna Russo.
The new schedule was not made just to make a new schedule. What sparked it was the idea that we needed to change some program around here. So this was a 5-year process in looking at and thinking about what we wanted the upper school program to be. A committee was created called the Steering Committee for Program and Schedule in the upper school, and it comprised a wide variety of people across all of the disciplines. We started revisiting and doing some reading together about Quakerism and Quaker education and what that meant. We looked at our own philosophy. We did some research around best practices in upper schools and in schools in general, what some of the new trends were. There was input from kids, but the input was from kids 5 years ago. So our schedule has to work for everybody. So the schedule has to take into account the needs of the lower school, the needs of the middle school, and the needs of the upper school. One of the biggest requests from teachers was more class time. They also wanted more predictability.
One of the most interesting responses was that there was a big point of tension between teachers and students about community time. Students seemed to love having a break in the day when they could take time to hang out. Many students also said that they take advantage of community time to do their homework. However, the teachers felt that the time was too unstructured and needed to be re-examined for next year. We'll have to wait and see what the faculty decides. And now to Vicky with another story of Community Buzz.
Thanks, Josh. Along with our voices in the AFS community, the student body is offered the freedom to express ourselves through what we wear. In school, we do not have many restrictions on what we wear. Sure, sometimes girls' shorts are a little too short, or some boys' pants just don't fit around the waist. But when students are told to fix such issues, the problem is resolved. Last year, however, there was a dilemma on the idea of facial piercings. Some of you may recall the meeting for business we had about freedom of nose, lip, or tongue piercings. There was an overall sense that nose, lip, tongue, eyebrow, and other various piercings could be allowed as long as they weren't distracting or too disturbing for the community. A few weeks later, it seemed that the issue had been handled, and piercings were restored. But how did this happen? A couple of students were interviewed who dealt directly with the outcome to get the full scoop on how the events unfolded.
When were you told that you could no longer wear your facial piercings, and what were the reasons given?
I was told the beginning of my sophomore year that I couldn't wear them because I had gotten my lip ring done in the end of my freshman year, and it was just mostly my sophomore and junior year that I was always hassled about taking it off because it was disruptive to the school.
Well, I got it when I was in 10th grade, so I guess after winter break I came back and the teachers were aware of it, and they said I had to cover it with a Band-Aid, so I started wearing Band-Aids. But yeah, so I couldn't take it out though, so I just had to wear a Band-Aid all the time.
After that, I got really annoyed, along with a lot of other students that had to constantly take off their nose rings or their lip rings and whatnot, and we just went up to Rini and we asked her what we could do about it, and she told us we could write a proposal, and then basically what happened was that me, Nora, I think Sasha, and a bunch of other people like just gave me input and whatnot, and we just wrote this proposal up and we gave it to Rini, and she gave it to Rich, and Rich took it to the school committee, who then discussed this rule and like how we could possibly change it and whatnot.
How it was decided to take it to meeting for worship, but then, you know, as a community, I think we agreed that, like the whole, it seemed that the whole community supported mild piercings, nothing offensive.
What did you have to negotiate?
We didn't want any like violent type of like piercings, so I guess you can't have like huge spikes coming out of like your face and like stuff that just isn't Quakerly. And we also had to like put a limit on it because it would just be deemed like, I guess if you had like 20 piercings on your face, that is kind of disruptive to the learning process and whatnot. So we just said like three would be the limit. It's just things like that.
And now to Josh with the story of the leaving seniors.
Thanks, Vicky. With the class of 2011 off on SIP, the rising seniors of AFS have a new sense of what leadership really means, and an entirely new vibe is flowing throughout the hallways. It is a much different experience walking around the high school now that the current seniors have left, with kids from every grade hanging in the student commons, and most importantly, seeing the class of 2012, who seem to have already taken on the responsibility and maturity of a senior class. The class of 2011 is a very strong and talented class, full of members who understand their roles as leaders in the community. They'll be missed greatly on the athletic fields, in musicals, and choral and instrumental ensembles, but moreover as friends and role models at AFS. The class of 2012, however, brings a different strength to the school as they become seniors. It is a class made up of kind and caring kids who are excited to be seniors as well as leaders. In late March, the candlelight ceremony, where the seniors handed the light of leadership to the juniors, was not only the end for the seniors, but also the beginning for the class of 2012. As the year closed for the seniors, Arbor Day provided them with a nice closure to their time at AFS. That was the last of the senior class until June, when they returned for their graduation, during which a much more relaxed and gentle feel flows through the air, and the students of the 3 remaining classes start to become closer. The class of 2011 will surely be missed next year and for years to come, but the class of 2012 is unquestionably ready to lead their school in their own and unique way. And now to Tim on diversity in AFS.
Thanks, Josh. In the past few years, AFS has embarked on a new journey of making diversity work more integrated into the daily life of students. And this year, a giant step has been taken. With the leadership of Senora Silverman and seniors Alexis Anderson and Reese Botts, AFS has an expanding interest in exploring new ways to teach and understand diversity. The first step in improving diversity work inside AFS began with reinventing Pride, which is the student-run diversity group. This year, Senora changed Pride into a group of kids who are clerks of many affinity groups to gather people of many different races and beliefs. As a group, they decided they wanted to take things to a new level and have assemblies and plan days which could have a greater impact on students. The first diversity assembly was headed by the Black Student Union, where they hosted a roundtable discussion in the auditorium in front of the entire high school. 20 black students sat in a circle and answered questions about their struggles caused by the color of their skin. It was a very unusual, uncomfortable, yet genuine experience where these kids opened up to the community on a very personal subject. The questions focused on how race affected these kids' lives, how they felt about being a minority at AFS, and how the color of their skin changes their relationship with people in and out of school. Listening to these kids' hardships got mixed reviews from the audience. As many people enjoyed this assembly and thought it was an eye-opening experience, others felt defensive towards what was said. Both Shaq Vaughn, an assembly participant, and Gabe Sansone, an audience member, were interviewed, and here are their thoughts on the assembly.
I thought it was pretty successful. Although I didn't talk a lot of my peers did, and I like to hear their opinions about certain topics and intense conversations about race. And I like the fact that we got to do it in front of the AFS community so they could hear it as well.
I feel like it made me feel, to be honest, like a little bit uncomfortable, but at the same time I feel like that sort of uncomfortable feeling is what we need, or what happens when you get into discussions about topics such as race and deep issues. And I feel like it was kind of like a necessary discomfort.
How can we build on this as a community?
But I feel like if we get everybody together and then have some discussions where every voice from different groups in the school can be represented, then we can like further move along with this discussion and try to get somewhere.
Thank you to both Shaq and Gabe, and now off to Mike for our faculty spotlight.
Thanks, Tim. AFS is a school that thrives off of its diverse roots, and this year especially, we're seeing the fruits of insightful conversations and difficult yet stimulating activities. But this process began a lot longer than any current student can remember. However, there's one person in the community who does know. As a matter of fact, he claims himself to be the MLK of AFS, with a story to support his claim. He paved the way for young African Americans whose lifestyle was something the AFS community had never seen before. That man is Mark Thompson. Mark first came to AFS hoping that it could jumpstart his basketball career. However, what he didn't expect to get was a new insight on the world around him. His high school experience opened his eyes to something had he not attended AFS, he might have turned a blind eye to. Being a student here not only exposed him to diversity in the world, but even diversity within his own race. To this day, he appreciates this exposure because it allows him to connect, or as he calls it, code switch, with people whose backgrounds are different from that of his own. In an interview with Mark, we talked about those times and how he feels those experiences has affected the community to this day.
I was the first person that the institution brought in that was truly different than the regular or the type of young kids of color that was here. Probably had the opportunity to interact with maybe 7 or 8 kids of color. And now understanding what that looks like for you guys, to see that you guys have the doors open up so much in terms of diversity, right, that I acclimated into the environment, I think allowed some people to feel more sure that, well, we brought some kids in that were different than we had, and that, he succeeded, so maybe there's more opportunity for us to do the same thing as years past. I feel really, really good about being able to, open up the doors for other kids to experience the blessing that was atoned to me.
And now to Elliot with the Spotlight student.
Thanks, Mike. Many talented singers and performers have walked through the upper school hallways throughout the history of AFS. Yet few can claim that they've performed with Elton John, Patti LaBelle, and have performed in national singing competitions twice. David Bazaglo, a junior who passionately tackles the genre of opera, can claim many of these feats and more. Remarkably, David started his singing career at the young age of 7 years old when he joined the Philadelphia Boys Choir. He attributes a lot of his success to the highly competitive program, which he has participated in for 5 years.
I mean, at my time they had like an 80-person cap, and so you had to, at 8 or 9, you always had to be every half year defending your seat, and it was very competitive.
The boys' choir was so competitive that at age 12, David decided to take what he describes as a vocal break while his voice changed. But this surely would not end the talented singer's career. He recalls an experience from 2008 when he visited the Academy of Vocal Arts and first witnessed the opera La Traviata, composed by Giuseppe Verdi. This, David remembers, is the moment when he decided that his future would involve singing opera. From that moment on, he began to truly explore his vocal potential.
So there's also a whole other genre of art songs and lieder, which are not meant for orchestra, which are just meant for voice and for piano, which I'm also really interested in.
David has also performed in countless productions through the AFS Arts program, including Fiddler on the Roof and the Putnam County Spelling Bee. This musical theater work has truly developed his confidence and performing abilities. Recently, David has been inspired by his voice instructors, as well as the singers at the Interlochen Arts Camp in Michigan, which he attended this past summer.
They have 2 voice programs there, and I went to the soloist vocal performance program, and that was really eye-opening for me. I mean, you had some really incredible talent there. You got to work with kids. I mean, some of the kids who I worked with are going to top conservatories like Eastman, Juilliard.
This program prepared David for the Classical Singer High School Voice Competition, the largest youth singing competition in the United States. Having passed his regional auditions, David is now prepared to travel to Los Angeles, California, to compete on the national scale. David could use all the support he can get from the AFS community, so make sure to wish him luck as he continues his musical journey. After 13 years as a lifer at Abington Friends School, David is taking his talents to the Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan, where he will continue to pursue his dream. For that, the AFS News Show wishes David the best of luck. Now to Vicky with more about Winter Trek.
Thanks, Elliot. The AFS winter track team could always be seen either running around campus, down Student Street, in circles around the front of the school, or on a makeshift track on Smith Field. Equipped with their best gloves and ear warmers, the winter track team faced the cold, hail, snow, and ice on the streets of Jenkintown this past winter. The AFS community is unable to see these runners compete because the meets are very odd events. Held at Lehigh, Haverford, or Swarthmore, meets involve over 50 schools in the Delaware Valley region. They run on 200-meter tracks with hundreds of other girls or boys, people yelling commands and screaming cheers mixed in with the shot from the starting gun. Leaving at 3:30 on Fridays, the girls' team doesn't return until midnight. Waking up early to get to school around 8 or 9 Saturday mornings, the boys' team doesn't return until around 2 p.m. These meets were long and at times frustrating, but they were a bonding experience for the team. Here's footage from a girls' meet this past winter.
How do you feel today? Really cold. It's really cold in here. Susie, go Susie! Woo! You got it! Push!
And now to Sammy, who will narrate the mysteries behind the AFS swim team.
Thanks, Vicky. This past winter, before the sun rose, while you were catching your last set of Z's, the members of the AFS swim team had already doubled their lap totals for the morning. As each devoted AFS swimmer trickled into the Abington Club each morning, coaches Drew Benfer and Amy Jackson tossed them into the pool where nothing but grueling work awaited them. Junior correspondent Jesse Doherty visited a swim practice in February and reported this. Above the first lane, occupied by sophomore Yvonne Glinsky, a sign reads, "Swimming at your own risk." For these student athletes, the risk is clear, but frankly, they don't care. Each winter morning, the pool roos took to the water, even with school shortly following, provided their toughest challenge of the day. First-year coach Amy Jackson barked out commands telling the swimmers when to rest and when to kick it into high gear. Fresh off the first win of the season against Barak Hebrew Academy, and with swimming champs in the near future, Jackson was leaving no time for Marco Polo at this specific morning workout. Once the swimmers retired to the showers, Doherty caught up with Coach Jackson and asked her to comment on the team's progress this season.
The team has made tremendous progress this season. We've had a lot of individual best times. We won our first meet yesterday, which was wonderful and exciting. And the team has made progress together as a team. They have really come together. They have unified. They support each other. Their times have improved dramatically, and I am very pleased with their performance and the effort that they've given this year.
We wish the swim team the best of luck and continued growth in the future. And now to Josh and Tim with the spring sports update.
Thanks, Sammy. After the trials and tribulations of a tough start for the AFS baseball team, they have found their groove through hard work and striking senior leadership. Late in the year, the team is beginning to roll, capturing their fourth straight win against Bishop McDevitt on Friday, May 13th. Eliminated from league playoffs, the team hopes to sustain their late season success into the Independent School State Tournament. Behind seniors Kenny Johnson, Jake Siegel, Zach Fisher, Ethan Ostroff, Josh Myers, and Captain Nico Regalbuto, AFS will close the season playing good baseball with pride and hard-earned consistency. Now to Tim with an update from across the campus to the softball field.
AFS girls varsity softball started their season with a championship to defend and a set of new coaches to help them do it. Starting with workouts and hitting clinics throughout January and February, and leading into preseason in March, the softball team was off to a dynamic start. Head coach Christina Gibson was ready to lead the girls through a successful season, starting with new players, new drills, new plays, and a new attitude. The softball team is made up of players from the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and the team is proud to be graduating 5 senior players: Christina Furlong, Taylor Harding, Emily Delaney, Maria Savarese, and Kelsey Clark. The season kicked off at a high point in late March with the team's first game against Springside School, where they came away with a 3-1 victory. This game set the tone for the rest of the year, where the girls finished the regular season with a record of 13-3 and 10-0 in the league. The girls are soaring into the playoffs, where success is expected by everyone on the team. Good luck to AFS softball as they go for their second straight Friends League title. And now to Elliot with some world news.
Thanks, Tim. Over the past few months, the media has been constantly covering the protests happening in the countries of the Middle East. A total of at least 20 countries have broken out in protest over the past few months, including the most notable in Egypt, Yemen, Tunisia, and Libya. Some have already seen results and are in the process of revolutionizing their governments. Egypt succeeded in forcing the resignation of their ruler of 30 years, President Mubarak, on February 11, 2011. Libya, over the past few weeks, has seen the start of violent reactions from their government when the country was on the brink of a civil war. Their president, Muammar Gaddafi, has used multiple violent approaches against his people, including tear gas, hot water, and open fire. The death toll is estimated to be in the thousands. As of late, the protests in Libya have escalated into a civil war. In mid-March, the UN imposed a no-fly zone over Libya, and the next day, Gaddafi ordered a ceasefire. However, troops continued to fire on the opposition. Bombings have occurred since, and the UK and US have announced aid to the rebels, including the US's $25 million package. The death count in Libya is estimated to be between 10,000 and 20,000. And now to Mike with the story on the death of Osama bin Laden.
Thanks, Elliot. Although May 1st marks the death of terrorist and al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, it simultaneously begins a new chapter on the war on terror. Whether or not it's the final chapter still remains uncertain. On August 7th of 1998, 3 years before the tragic Twin Tower collapse on September 11th, American embassies in the East African cities of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and Nairobi, Kenya, were attacked by truck explosions that killed 12 American citizens while injuring and killing thousands more. This would be America's first terrorist attack from bin Laden. Recently, Barack Obama announced to the world that Osama bin Laden, the man who has been haunting America for decades, the face of terrorism, was killed in a military raid conducted by American troops who were sent to a compound located in a city in Pakistan called Abbottabad, where Osama lived. Many Americans rejoiced in his death, seeing as though he met the same fate as he brought to hundreds of Americans. However, a Quaker community grapples with this idea for the simple reason that a life has been lost. The most basic principle of Quaker morals is the idea of peace and anti-war. The death of any man, no matter what he has done, isn't something to rejoice in. And now to Sammy with the entertainment news.
On May 13th, AFS students from the choral, chamber choir, and the advanced acting class came together in the Black Box for their annual cabaret. This was an evening of students singing songs from the cabaret period or songs inspired by that era. The music ranged from Anya Hutter singing an inspired Je ne regrette rien by Edith Piaf to Sacha Rojavin and Cecilia Simon de Stefano singing a hilarious and heart-wrenching duet from the French film The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, to Maddie Durbin, who sang an emotional and powerful Turning Tables by Adele. Other exciting news from the AFS Theater Department is this year's Cappies voting, where our fall play The Government Inspector was nominated for 8 Cappy Awards, including Best Play. This year, Elizabeth and Tom Gurin, Mackay Herter, Cecilia Simon de Stefano, and Sacha Rojavin were all nominated for their stage performances. Behind the scenes, Rebecca Luborski was nominated for Best Props and Effects, and the stage crew led by Tom McMenamin and Maddie Bagley hope to repeat as the Best Stage Crew. I'm Sammy Tress, and on behalf of the AFS News team, we thank you and wish you a great summer.